A teenage girl calls 911 at 1 a.m. sobbing hysterically. "Someone broke into our house," she screams. "My mom, oh God, there's so much blood." But when investigators arrived at the suburban Texas home that July night in 2012, they discovered something that would shake this quiet community to its core. The person responsible for stabbing 48-year-old Mary Thompson 73 times wasn't a stranger who broke in. It was someone she trusted completely, someone she had raised, loved, and protected for 16 years. Her own daughter. Humble, Texas seemed like the perfect place to raise a family. Tree-lined streets, well-kept lawns, and neighbors who still waved to each other from their front porches. It was the kind of community where parents felt safe letting their kids walk to school alone, where the biggest scandal was usually someone forgetting to bring cookies to the PTA meeting. Mary Thompson had called this place home for over a decade. At 48, she was the kind of mother every parent aspired to be. She worked double shifts at the local hospital to provide for her family, never missed her daughter Emma's soccer games, and always had homemade cookies waiting when the kids came home from school. Her husband David worked nights at a nearby plant, and their son Michael had just started his first job at 18. But it was Emma, their youngest at 16, who was the light of Mary's life, or so everyone thought. The Thompson house at 8300 Oak Ridge Lane looked like something out of a magazine. White picket fence, rose bushes in the front yard, and a swing set in the back that Mary had refused to take down even though Emma had outgrown it years ago. Neighbors often commented on what a tight-knit family they seemed to be. "Mary was always bragging about Emma," said Mrs. Patterson from next door. "She was so proud of that girl." But behind those perfectly painted walls, a secret was growing. A secret so twisted that when it finally exploded into violence, it would leave one mother dead and a community questioning everything they thought they knew about the family living right next door. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Mary Thompson's story began like so many others. Born in small-town Louisiana, she had worked her way through nursing school while raising her first child, Michael. When she met David Thompson at a hospital charity event in 2003, friends said it was love at first sight. David, a gentle giant with calloused hands and a warm smile, had just moved to Texas for work. Within a year, they were married. Emma came along 2 years later, a surprise pregnancy that Mary later called the best accident of my life. The early years were picture perfect. Mary documented everything in thick photo albums, each page carefully labeled with dates and detailed descriptions. Emma's first steps, her first word, which was mama, her first day of kindergarten in a pink dress that Mary had sewn herself. David worked hard to provide for his growing family, often pulling 16-hour shifts at the plant. Mary juggled her nursing job with school pickup, soccer practice, and seemingly endless loads of laundry. Yet neighbors remember her always having a smile, always asking about their families, always offering to help when someone was sick or struggling. But as Emma entered her teenage years, something began to change. The once bubbly little girl who had followed her mother everywhere became moody and distant. Mary, like most parents of teenagers, assumed it was just a phase. "She's just finding herself," Mary would tell her sister during their weekly phone calls. "Remember how we were at that age?" What Mary didn't know was that her daughter had been living a double life for over a year. While Mary thought Emma was at study groups or soccer practice, she was actually spending time with someone who would eventually destroy their family. Rebecca Collins was 23 years old when she first met Emma at a local community center, where Emma volunteered on weekends. Rebecca worked there part-time while studying for her GED, and she quickly became fascinated with the bright, articulate teenager who seemed so much more mature than her peers. At first, their relationship seemed innocent enough. Rebecca would help Emma with her volunteer work, drive her home when Mary was working late shifts, and even came to dinner at the Thompson house a few times. Mary remembered thinking Rebecca was a sweet girl who just needed some guidance. David was less enthusiastic, later telling investigators that something about Rebecca had always made him uncomfortable, though he couldn't put his finger on what exactly. As months passed, Emma became increasingly secretive about her whereabouts. Her grades, which had always been excellent, began to slip. She stopped participating in family game nights, started skipping soccer practice, and became hostile whenever her parents asked questions about her day. Mary, exhausted from working double shifts to help pay for Emma's college fund, tried to be understanding. "I thought she was just stressed about junior year," Mary confided to her best friend, nurse supervisor Janet Williams. "I never imagined." The text messages between Emma and Rebecca, later uncovered by police, revealed the true nature of their relationship. What had started as mentorship had evolved into something much more complex and inappropriate. Rebecca, struggling with her own identity and financial problems, had found in Emma someone who looked up to her, someone who made her feel important and needed. Emma, desperate for independence and rebellion against what she saw as her mother's controlling nature, found in Rebecca someone who understood her frustrations and promised her a different kind of life. Their relationship became physical sometime in the spring of 2012, just months before the murder. Emma, still legally a minor, was swept up in what she believed was true love. Rebecca, facing mounting pressure from student loans and a minimum wage job, began to see Emma's comfortable middle-class lifestyle as something she deserved to have. The plan, according to court documents, began forming in June 2012. Emma complained constantly to Rebecca about her mother's rules, her early curfews, her restrictions on dating. "I just want to be free," Emma wrote in one text message that would later be used as evidence. "I want to be with you without having to sneak around." Rebecca, instead of encouraging Emma to have an honest conversation with her parents or wait until she turned 18, began planting seeds of a much darker idea. "What if your mom just wasn't around to control you anymore?" she texted back. "What if it was just us?" These weren't idle fantasies. As summer progressed, their conversations became increasingly specific, increasingly violent, and increasingly real. July 15, 2012, started like any other Sunday at the Thompson house. Mary had worked a double shift Saturday night and slept until noon, something she rarely allowed herself to do. She woke to find Emma making pancakes in the kitchen, a gesture that filled Mary with hope that maybe their relationship was improving. "She seemed like her old self," Mary later wrote in her journal, an entry that would break investigators' hearts. "She hugged me and told me she loved me. I thought we had turned a corner." David had left for his night shift at 10 p.m., kissing Mary goodbye and reminding her to lock all the doors. Michael was working a late shift at the restaurant where he had just started as a server. It was just Mary and Emma in the house, something that hadn't happened in months due to their increasingly strained relationship. What Mary didn't know was that Emma had spent the entire day texting back and forth with Rebecca, finalizing the details of a plan they had been discussing for weeks. Rebecca had driven by the house 3 times that afternoon, noting which lights were on, which neighbors appeared to be home, and the exact layout of the backyard where she planned to enter. Emma had provided her with detailed information about the house's security system, which doors were usually unlocked, and most importantly, which bedroom was her mother's. The plan was simple in its cruelty. Rebecca would break in through the back door while Emma pretended to be asleep. She would attack Mary while she slept, making it look like a random home invasion gone wrong. Emma would then discover the scene and call 911, playing the role of the traumatized daughter who had barely escaped with her own life. At 11:47 p.m., Emma sent what would be her final text message to Rebecca. "She's asleep, come now." Rebecca parked her car 3 blocks away and walked through the neighborhood, dressed in dark clothing with a backpack containing gloves, a knife she had purchased at a sporting goods store the week before, and a change of clothes. Security cameras from a neighbor's house would later capture a figure moving through the Thompsons' backyard at approximately 12:15 a.m. Emma, according to her later confession, lay in her bed listening to every sound, her heart pounding so hard she was certain her mother would hear it through the walls. She had unlocked the back door earlier that evening while Mary was in the shower, a detail that would haunt investigators for years afterward. Rebecca entered the house at 12:23 a.m. The silence in the suburban neighborhood was broken only by the distant hum of air conditioners and the occasional car passing on the main road. She moved through the kitchen, past the family photos that lined the hallway, past Emma's bedroom, where the 16-year-old lay frozen with terror and anticipation. Mary's bedroom was at the end of the hall, the door slightly ajar as she always kept it in case the kids needed her during the night. Rebecca later testified that she stood outside Mary's door for almost 5 minutes, listening to the peaceful sound of her sleeping breath, knowing she was about to destroy not just one life but the lives of everyone who loved Mary Thompson. The attack was swift and brutal. Mary woke to the sensation of being stabbed, her confusion and terror evident in the screams that would haunt Emma for the rest of her life. "Stop! Stop! Please!" Mary cried out, the words piercing through the walls and reaching Emma, who had not anticipated the reality of hearing her mother beg for her life. The medical examiner would later determine that Mary had defensive wounds on her hands and arms, indicating she had fought desperately to survive. She had managed to get out of bed and make it halfway to the door before Rebecca overpowered her. The attack continued for what felt like an eternity, but was actually less than 3 minutes. When it was over, Mary Thompson lay on her bedroom floor, her life seeping away from 73 separate stab wounds. Emma's 911 call came at 1:04 a.m. "Please help me. Someone broke into our house. My mom. Oh God, I think she's dead." Her voice was raw with genuine terror, not because she hadn't expected this outcome, but because she hadn't expected it to feel so real, so final, so absolutely devastating. By the time police arrived 7 minutes later, Rebecca had already fled through the same back door she had entered, leaving behind a scene that would traumatize first responders for years to come. Emma met officers at the front door, sobbing hysterically and pointing toward her mother's bedroom. "She's back there," Emma cried. There was so much screaming, and then it just stopped. Detective Sarah Martinez was the first investigator on the scene. A 20-year veteran of the force, she had seen numerous violent crimes, but something about this scene felt different. The level of violence was extreme, she later testified. This wasn't a robbery gone wrong. This was personal. Mary's purse sat untouched on the kitchen counter. Her jewelry box remained closed on the dresser, and her car keys hung on the hook by the garage door. Nothing had been stolen. Even more puzzling was Emma's story. She claimed to have heard the commotion from her bedroom, but said she had been too scared to come out until after she heard the back door slam shut. Yet her bedroom was at the opposite end of the house from where the attack occurred. How had she heard her mother's screams so clearly? And why hadn't she called 911 immediately, instead of waiting until she was certain the attacker was gone? As paramedics worked desperately to save Mary's life, Detective Martinez noticed something else that would prove crucial to the investigation. Emma's clothes were completely clean. If she had truly discovered her mother's body as she claimed, if she had knelt beside Mary and tried to help her as she told officers, why wasn't there any blood on her nightgown? These questions would soon lead investigators down a path that would reveal the most heartbreaking betrayal imaginable. The investigation into Mary Thompson's murder began at dawn on July 16, 2012. Detective Martinez assembled a team of experienced investigators, knowing that the first 48 hours would be critical in solving what appeared to be a random home invasion. But as they began processing the crime scene, inconsistencies in Emma's story started to emerge like cracks in a foundation. The back door showed no signs of forced entry, despite Emma's insistence that she had heard someone kick it in. The security system, which Mary religiously set every night, had been disarmed from the inside at 11:52 p.m. When asked about this, Emma claimed her mother must have gotten up to let their cat out, but neighbors confirmed the Thompsons had never owned any pets. Emma's behavior during questioning also raised red flags. While grief affects everyone differently, experienced investigators noticed that Emma's emotional responses seemed performative rather than genuine. She would sob uncontrollably when asked about finding her mother's body, but became calm and articulate when discussing details about the supposed break-in. Most telling was her immediate concern about living arrangements. "Where will I go now?" she asked Detective Martinez within hours of her mother's death, before any relatives had even been notified. It was a practical question, but one that seemed premature given the circumstances. The breakthrough came when investigators examined Emma's cell phone. Text messages revealed not only her inappropriate relationship with Rebecca Collins, but also detailed discussions about killing Mary. "I can't take it anymore," Emma had written just days before the murder. "She controls everything I do. I wish she was just gone." Rebecca's responses were even more damning. "Maybe she could be. Maybe we could make that happen." The digital trail painted a clear picture of premeditation that stretched back weeks. Emma had provided Rebecca with detailed information about her family's routines, her father's work schedule, and even the layout of their house. Most chillingly, she had researched her mother's life insurance policies and had already contacted a lawyer about emancipation procedures. When confronted with this evidence, Emma initially denied everything. "Those texts don't mean anything," she insisted. "We were just venting. Everyone says stuff like that about their parents." But as investigators pressed harder, her story began to fall apart. Security footage from a neighboring house showed Rebecca's car parked on their street multiple times in the weeks leading up to the murder, contradicting Emma's claim that she barely knew the woman. Financial records revealed that Rebecca had been struggling with debt, working multiple minimum wage jobs while trying to complete her education. Emma, meanwhile, had been researching the value of her family's house and had even looked up information about inheriting money as a minor. The arrest of Rebecca Collins came first. Surveillance cameras had captured her at a gas station less than 2 miles from the Thompson house at 12:45 a.m., approximately 20 minutes after the murder. She was wearing different clothes than those captured on the neighbor's security camera, and investigators found the original outfit, stained with Mary's blood, hidden in her apartment closet. Initially, Rebecca tried to maintain her innocence, but when faced with the overwhelming physical evidence, she broke down and confessed. "I didn't mean for it to be so violent," she told investigators through tears. "I thought it would be quick, that she wouldn't suffer." Emma said her mom was a heavy sleeper. Rebecca's confession revealed the full extent of Emma's involvement. She detailed how Emma had provided the layout of the house, disabled the security system, and even suggested the best time to attack when Mary would be in her deepest sleep cycle. Most damning of all, Rebecca revealed that Emma had watched from her bedroom doorway as the attack took place, only pretending to be asleep when Rebecca left through the back door. "She wanted to make sure I went through with it," Rebecca testified. She said she needed to see it happen to believe her mom was really gone. Emma's arrest shocked the humble community. Her teachers described her as a bright, articulate student who had never shown any signs of violence. Her soccer coach said she was one of the most polite kids he had ever worked with. Even her own father struggled to believe that his daughter could be capable of such a horrific crime. "This isn't the Emma I raised," David Thompson told investigators. "Something happened to my little girl, and I don't understand what." Child psychologists brought in to evaluate Emma discovered a complex web of resentment, manipulation, and misguided love that had culminated in the ultimate betrayal. Emma felt suffocated by her mother's expectations and rules, but instead of communicating these feelings or seeking help, she had chosen the most permanent solution possible. The community struggled to understand how a seemingly normal family could harbor such darkness. Neighbors questioned whether they had missed warning signs, whether they could have prevented this tragedy if they had been more observant. The case forced everyone to confront an uncomfortable truth. Sometimes the people who seem the most normal on the outside are fighting the most devastating battles within their own homes. The moment of truth came during Emma's interrogation on August 3, 2012, nearly 3 weeks after her mother's murder. Detective Martinez had spent hours going through the evidence methodically, piece by piece, watching as Emma's carefully constructed lies crumbled around her. The turning point came when investigators revealed they had found Mary's journal, hidden in her bedroom closet. The final entry, written just hours before her death, read, "Emma made pancakes today and told me she loved me. I think we're going to be okay. I'm so grateful for this second chance with my daughter." When Detective Martinez read those words aloud, Emma's composure finally shattered completely. The weight of what she had done, the finality of her choice, the realization that her mother had died believing they were reconciling, broke through all her defenses. She wasn't supposed to wake up, Emma sobbed. She wasn't supposed to know it was happening. She wasn't supposed to be scared. Through her tears, she confessed everything. How she had convinced Rebecca that killing Mary was their only path to being together. How she had watched from her doorway as Rebecca stabbed her mother. How she had practiced her 911 call earlier that evening to make sure she sounded convincing. The confession was devastating in its raw honesty. Emma finally admitted that she hadn't just wanted her mother dead. She had wanted to be the one who decided when and how Mary died. "I wanted control," she whispered. "For once in my life, I wanted to be the one making the decisions." It was a motive so chillingly simple that it left seasoned investigators questioning everything they thought they understood about family dynamics and teenage rebellion. The trial of Emma Thompson and Rebecca Collins became a media sensation, drawing attention from across the country. Emma, tried as an adult despite being only 16 at the time of the murder, was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Rebecca, who had cooperated with investigators and shown genuine remorse for her actions, received a sentence of 35 years with the possibility of parole after serving 20 years. The courtroom was packed with community members, many of whom had known Mary personally and struggled to reconcile the brutal crime with the memory of the kind, hard-working woman they had admired. David Thompson, who had lost both his wife and daughter in one horrible night, provided a victim impact statement that left few dry eyes in the courtroom. "Mary died believing Emma loved her," he said, his voice breaking. "She died thinking they had finally found their way back to each other. I don't know if that makes it better or worse." Michael, now 19 and struggling with the loss of his mother and the betrayal of his sister, chose not to attend the sentencing. He later moved across the country and rarely speaks publicly about the case. The Thompson house on Oak Ridge Lane stood empty for over a year, before David finally sold it and moved away. The new owners renovated extensively, trying to erase the tragic history from its walls, but neighbors still pointed out to visitors as the house where that girl killed her mother. The case forced the humble community to confront uncomfortable questions about warning signs, family communication, and the hidden struggles that can exist behind even the most perfect-seeming facades. As we close this tragic chapter, one question continues to haunt everyone who knew the Thompson family. How could a mother's love, so pure and unconditional, be met with such devastating betrayal? Mary Thompson worked double shifts to provide for her daughter, sacrificed her own dreams to ensure Emma's future, and died believing they had reconciled their differences. Was justice truly served with Emma's life sentence? Or does the real tragedy lie in a system that failed to recognize the warning signs of such a toxic relationship before it turned deadly? What would you have done if you had been Emma's neighbor, teacher, or friend? Would you have recognized the signs, or would you have been just as shocked as everyone else when the truth finally came to light? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more true crime stories that explore the darkest corners of human nature. Next week, we'll examine another case where love and obsession crossed a line that should never be crossed, leaving a trail of destruction that still reverberates today.